We go to economics. Chapter 21. Right there.
Yes.
Firms and production. Why some industries employ workers, many workers, but use little capital equipment, while others use a high proportion of capital? Why does the same industries in different countries use different combinations of factors of production? For example, why is the number of farm workers per unit of land much lower in the US than in Mali? How may varying the combination of labor and capital affect production and productivity? So we start. Demand for factors of production. What factors of production are employed? We're talking about demand for factors of production. We're talking about the land, labor, capital, and enterprise. Their demand. Why do we need them? It's because factors of production are resources that are available that helps in the production of goods and services. So without the factors of production, there's not going to be production.
Yes.
I think that's clear. So there's always a demand for the factors of production. So let's read. What factors of production are employed? The type of factors of production employed is influenced by the type of product produced, the productivity of the factors, and their cost. So when we talk about the demand for factors of production, the demand for factors of production are basically influenced by the kind of product those factors are needed to produce and the cost of those factors and the level of productivity of those factors. So we're going to need land, labor, capital. We might need land or we might need labor because what we need to use here is basically labor intensive. We might demand for more capital. We might invest in more capital because what we need more is about creating large output, which we know that the only way out is to use equipment. So firms will demand for factors of production if it is useful for them in terms of productivity, if it is useful for them in terms of what it's going to be producing, and if it is useful for them in the course of cost reduction. So these are the three reasons why we demand for factors of production. First one, the cost of it. The second one, the productivity of it. And the third one is what it's going to be used to produce. Is it clear?
Yes.
So move on. So when factors of production are substitutes, a rise in the productivity or a fall in the cost of one of them may result in a change in the combination of resources being employed. When factors of production are substitutes. So if, for example, land and capital, they are substitutes. That means we can use equipment, we can use machines instead of men, instead of labor, right? So that means they are substitutes. So if the cost of one increases than the other, then we switch from using that one that the cost is increasing to the other. That is the point you're making there. Is it clear?
Yes.
A fall in the price of capital goods, for example, might lead to the replacement of some workers with machines. In other cases, where factors of production are complements, a fall in the price of one or a rise in its productivity may increase the employment of all factors in the firm. So there's a difference between complementary factors of production and substitute factors of production. If factors of production are substitutes, so that means a rise in the price of one will lead to switching to the other, which is the substitute. But if they are complements, it means they work hand in hand. So you cannot separate one of them. So if you need more workers, if labor and capital are complements, if the price of labor falls, workers will be more, and at the same time, capital would also be more. Because as soon as you have those more workers, you need capital, you need equipment to work with.
Yes.
Because here, we're not going to talk about labor alone. We need labor and capital together to work. So if the price of labor increases and the capital is not increasing, you have to also what? You don't have any other choice than to buy more, to pay more for labor. Because if you stop using labor, capital will not work because they are complements. So a fall in price of one would lead to an increase in the demand for another.
Increase demand for both.
For both.
Yes.
That is the point. So when they are complements, they will both be needed for employment. That is the difference between complement and substitute factors of production. Substitute factors of production, a rise in price of one will increase the demand for another. That is a substitute. But for complement, a fall in price of one will increase the demand for both.
Yes.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Altering factors of production. If a firm wants to change the quantity of resources employed by it, it will find it easier to do this with some factors than others. In the short run, there's likely to be at least one fixed factor. That means that the quantity cannot be altered quickly. The most obvious example is the size of the factory or office. It will take time for a firm desiring expansion to extend its building or build new ones. So that's why in the long run, all factors of production are variables. But in the short run, one factor would be constant, would be fixed. So it is difficult in the short run to change all factors of production. This is a building. You can't just change it to a school right now. It could be possible after 1 year, after 9 months, after 2 years. That means you are taking the decision right now. But in the short run, here is fixed. You cannot switch it. In the long run, all factors are what? Variables. Do you get what I'm talking about here? Okay. So we talked about. Similarly, one wanting to reduce output is unlikely to be able to stop renting or sell off its building quickly. In contrast, it is likely to be easier to change the quantity of labor, even in the very short term. In the short run, you can change the number of workers. You can kick out workers right now.
Yes.
No problems about that because it's variable. But there's always a fixed constant, a fixed resources in the short run, which you cannot change. But not labor. Labor is variable. So you can switch, you can change labor. You can switch jobs. You can switch functions. You can switch people's responsibility because they are workers, they are human. But you can't convert a machine to do something else immediately. It will take time. Is it clear, please?
Yes.
That's the point I'm making here. Now, altering of factors of production. In a nutshell, when you have to alter factors of production, you can only alter those that are variable in the short run. In the long run, it is possible for you to alter them.
Yes.
But in the long run, it is possible for you to alter factors of production. But in the short run, it is difficult, especially if it is fixed. Clear?
Yes.
Now, we're going to combining the factors of production. It is important to achieve the right combination of factors of production. For example, it would not make sense for a hairdressing salon to have 10 hair dryers and 2 hairdressers, or a farmer to have a large amount of land and only a few cattle. In the first case, labor would be underutilized, and in the second case, there will be an insufficient number of livestock to make full use of the land. You have 10 hairdressers machine. You have 2 hairdressers. Workers are underutilized. 2 workers for 10 equipment. That's underutilization of labor. For a farmer, you have large land, you have large numbers of land, and you have few cattle. They're not going to be enough. The cattle are not going to be sufficient to take care of the land. So there's underutilization there. Do you get the point we're making here? So that's why whenever you have to decide how to combine factors of production, you have to combine them in a way that is going to make sense. You have 10 equipment, hairdressing equipment. You need 10 workers because each one will be able to take one. And if you're not going to even employ 10, but if you're not employing 10, then why do you have 10 equipment? Because each one stands for one. Is it clear?
Yes.
So we'll go down. Any question about it?
No.
So we'll go down. Yeah, number of machines, number of workers, total output per worker per average. So this one is easy to calculate. The total output is, for one worker, we have 5 machines. They give you output of 50. So output per average will be 50 divided by numbers of workers. Do you understand how we get the average here? We have the number of machines, right?
Yes.
The table, are you there?
Yes.
We have the numbers of machines, we have the number of workers, we have the total output in units, and we have the output per worker. Do you get it? That's what we call labor productivity. Labor productivity is what? Output divided by input. So output divided by the number of workers. So the output is 50. The number of workers is 1. So labor productivity there is 50. That's the average product in units. So here we have 120 units. The number of workers is 2. Productivity is 60. Is it clear?
Yes.
So that's how we get the figures. Any question about that?
No.
So we move on. Go down. Let me see. Number of workers is the same there. So we go to factors influencing demand for capital and goods. Are you there?
Yes.
Factors influencing demand for capital goods. So here we're talking about factors that determine the demand for equipment or machines. That's the point. So here we said, among the key factors influencing demand for capital goods are the price of capital goods, price of other factors of production, profit levels, corporation tax, income, interest rates, confidence level, and advances in technology. So we start with one at a time. Here we're talking about those things that decide or determine if we can really invest in capital goods. The first one is the price of those capital goods. So if the price of machines, the price of equipment are less, then we can invest on them. Yes or no?
Yes.
So here they say a rise in the price of capital goods will cause a contraction in the demand for capital goods, whereas an increase in the price of another factor of production, particularly labor, may increase the demand for capital goods. This will occur if the factors are substitutes, and the rise in price of another factor makes the production of a unit of output more expensive than that involving a rise in capital. If another factor is a complement, an increase in its price would cause a decrease in demand for capital. So what they are saying is this: a rise in the price of capital goods will cause contraction in the demand for capital goods. As a result, firms might start switching to labor if the price for labor is less. Because if it's less,
For labor.
but before that could happen, it would have meant that labor is a substitute to machine. If not, if workers cannot do what the machines will do, then there's no point employing workers because they won't be able to do the job.
Yes.
So the only time you use labor as a substitute for machine is because labor is a substitute, because labor can replace machine.
Yes.
Do you get the point I'm making there? Now they said this will occur if the factors of So, and one thing again is this: if capital continues to increase, the unit of labor, and labor is a substitute to capital.
Yes.
The unit of output will fall because firms will not be able to invest more in capital. So firms will use less machine with more workers. But we know that here we're talking about maybe complement. If workers will complement machines and the cost of machines are high, firms will not be able to invest in machines. This will drop the unit of output because firms will use more workers than the equipment. But they are complement. They need to work hand in hand. They need to work together. So output will fall as a result of capital increase, or as a result of an increase in capital goods. Is the first one clear? So a rise in price would reduce the demand for capital goods. Clear?
Yes.
Labor can only be used if labor is a substitute. Clear?
Yes.
The second one, profit level. If the profit levels are high, firms will have both ability and incentive to buy capital goods. So if firms are making huge profits, if firms are maximizing profit, they wouldn't have any problem investing in capital goods, irrespective of what the price is, because they have more money. So they have the incentive to invest more. That's the second point. Is it clear? The third point, a cut in corporation tax. If taxes on profit is reduced, firms will be making more money, more profit, yes or no, and they'll be able to invest in capital goods. But if there is an increase in corporation tax, profit made by firms will be less. They won't have that incentive to invest in capital goods. So a cut in corporation tax will increase profit, and profit increasing would help firms, or will be an incentive for firms to increase investment in capital goods. Clear?
Yes.
Rising real disposable income will lead to an increase in consumption. If the disposable income is increasing, we know what the disposable income is, right? That income that we can either spend or save. So if disposable income is increasing in an economy, that means demand for goods and services in that economy would increase, isn't it?
Yes.
So if it increases, firms wouldn't have any other choice than to strive to meet up with the demand for goods and services. As a result, they want to meet up with high demand for goods and services, they will invest more in capital goods. Do you get the point there? Do you get it or not? No. A rising real disposable income. We said disposable income is that income that can be spent or saved.
Yeah, that's the
Any amount of money, yes, that you can spend or save is disposable income. So if disposable income is increasing in a country, in an economy, it means that the demand for goods and services in that economy would increase, because an increase in disposable income will increase consumption.
Yes.
So if consumption is increasing, demand for goods and services are increasing. So where do we demand for? We are demanding from firms.
Yes.
So firms wouldn't have any other choice than to produce more. Yes or no?
Yes,
so producing more might mean that they have to increase, or they have to invest in capital goods to be able to increase their output. So that determines investment in capital goods. Is it clear now? The fourth point, a cut in interest rates would also tend to raise consumption and thereby encourage firms to expand their capacity. In addition, lower interest rates would increase investment. The fifth point here is about a cut in interest rates. What is interest rate? We said interest rate is the price of borrowing or saving. Yes or no?
Yes.
Good. If the interest rate falls, savings becomes borrowing becomes cheaper.
Yes.
So because borrowing becomes cheaper, firms will borrow more to invest in capital goods. Households will borrow because it is cheap to borrow. So because households are able to find, and now they have more cash to spend, the consumption will increase. They will demand for more in the economy. Yes or no? So because they are demanding for more in the economy, production would increase. So both firms and households would have more money to spend on, households will spend on consumption, firms will spend on investment. So a low interest rate or a cut in interest rate would increase investment in the economy. Is it clear?
Yes.
Another key, second to the last, another key influence on investment is firms' expectation about the future. If they are confident that sales will rise, they will invest now. In contrast, the rise in pessimism will result in a decline in investment. So the optimistic habit of firms about the future would make them to think about investing now. If firms are confident that in the future, demand for their goods will rise, they wouldn't care to spend more now on investment. But if they are pessimistic about the future, they wouldn't want to invest in capital goods, because investment in capital goods take huge amounts of money from them. So firms will not take the risk if they are pessimistic about the future. But if they are optimistic about the future, they invest now, because they know that the demand for their goods or services will increase in the future. Advances in technology. Advances in technology will increase the productivity of capital goods. If new and more efficient machinery is developed, firms are likely to invest more. So if there's advancement in technology, that with advancement in technology, things become so fast, yes or no, output firms will increase. So if firms are sure that this latest development in terms of technology would help their output, they will invest more in it. So these are the reasons why firms would invest or would demand for capital goods. 1, advancement in technology. 2, confidence level about what the future is holding. 3, increase in disposable income. 4, the price of capital goods. 6, the cut in corporation tax. Increase in profit made by firms, or low interest rates. So these are the reasons, these are the determinants or factors that influences the demand for capital goods. Clear?
Yes.
We move on. Go to demand for land. Are you there?
Yes.
Demand for land. Productivity is a key factor influencing demand for land. In terms of agricultural land, the most fertile land will be in the highest demand and receive the highest strength. Listen, demand for land. Land is fixed in nature. But what determines the demand for land? For agriculture, they need fertile land. They need land with nutrients. Yes or no?
Yes.
So lands that can give that large percentage of turnover in terms of plants, in terms of germination, is what the demand will be increasing. So if this land is still fertile, it has nutrients, farmers will buy it. The price will rise because it is agriculture, it's mainly for agriculture, and agriculture needs fertile land. Clear?
Yes.
City center sites are also very productive as firms have the potential to attract a high number of customers. So when talking about city centers, the demand for city centers are not agriculture, but it's a city. A lot of people walk around there, a lot of people stay around there. So prices of land in such area would increase because such area has large numbers of people going through in and out. Clear?
Yes.
If a shop is in the center of New York becomes vacant, it is likely that a number of retail firms would compete for it. It is in the expectation that they could earn high revenue there. The competition pushes up the rent that can be charged for a valuable site. So if there's a vacant shop in Sia here, Sia is a center. If there's a vacant shop in Sia here, the price will rise. Not because the landlord wants to increase the price, because of the competition of getting that rent, getting that spot or that space would increase. A lot of people would come. As a result, price will increase. So, is it clear?
Yes.
One natural resources which is experiencing an increase in world demand is water. Water is used for domestic, agricultural, industrial, energy production purposes. As countries become richer, they make heavier demands on scarce water supply. The global use of water has increased 6 times in the last 100 years, and is predicted to double again by 2050. So one of the largest demand that firms or that the world need is water, the use of water. Everybody needs water. So the demand for water is constantly increasing. That's the point there. I think it's clear. Is it clear, please?
Yes.
So go to factors of production and sectors of production. Are you there?
Yes.
Excuse me, please. Factors of production and sectors of production. Then they said the demand for products. The demand for factors of production can alter as an economy changes its industrial structure. So as mentioned in chapter 20, the distribution of resources among different sectors changes with economic development. In most cases, agricultural reform permits resources to move to low-cost manufacturing. Then resources move to higher value-added manufacturing. Then finally, the service sector becomes the most important one. Not all economies, however, conform to this pattern. India's service sector has expanded before it has built up a sizable manufacturing sector. Now, in most countries, the service sector makes the largest contribution of output. Indeed, 2016, the service sector accounted for 63% of global output. Different industries make use of different factors of production. The chemical industry, for example, is very capital intensive. Agriculture is land intensive, along with being water intensive. So the point I'm making here about factors of production is, when it comes to factors of production and the sector of production, factors of production are needed with the sectors we have. We have agricultural sector, we have
Primary sector.
the primary sector, the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. So each sector uses factors of production, but the way they use it varies. The primary sector might not be using the same factors of production as the secondary sector or the tertiary sector. So basically what they are saying here is this: in every economy, to determine that this economy is a developed economy, you have to have the large proportion of your workforce in the service sector. But getting to the service sector is not just a day job. It's a steady process. So you could start from reforming agriculture to low-cost manufacturing, then to high-level manufacturing, then to service. So you start by converting the raw materials little by little into semi-finished goods in a lower quantity. Then, as time goes on, you get better in it. You have more capital to invest on goods. Then you switch from that low-cost manufacturing to high value-added manufacturing. That's a steady progress. But not all countries do this. That is the point they're making. Especially example they gave India. India does not move from low-cost manufacturing to high added value manufacturing. India has already got into the service sector even before developing its manufacturing sector. That's why India is one of the countries that has the best technology in terms of IT, information technology.
Yes.
Do you understand? So India has already developed its service sector before thinking about the manufacturing sector. Do you understand? So it's not all countries, that's what they are saying, that not all countries has to go through the step. The step is from the primary sector to low-cost manufacturing to high added value manufacturing to the service sector.
Yes.
Do you get the point?
Yes.
So that is all what factors of production and sector of production is talking about. You cannot rely on agriculture, because if you do, resources will finish. And they are still cheap, because the demand for labor or the demand for agricultural products is not as high as the demand for services. You can extract these raw materials. Nobody's going to eat them like that. You could hunt for fish in the sea.
Mm.
You could get as much as you can, but they need to be refined. They need to be converted into geisha, into Titus, or whatever it is.
Yes.
So the primary sector would not have as much as what the secondary sector would have in terms of revenue. So for an economy to develop, an economy must rely heavily on high added value manufacturing and the service sector. Is it clear?
Yes.
We move on. Labor intensive or capital intensive production. Are you there?
Yes.
There are numbers of reasons why some producers use labor intensive methods of production. One is that there is a large supply of labor in the country, making labor relatively cheap. So one of the reasons why firms would use more of workers is because the wage rate of workers is less.
Yes.
That means there's a high level of supply of labor. And when the supply of labor is high, the wage rate would fall. So firms would seize the opportunity to employ more workers instead of investing in capital goods. Is it clear?
Yes.
That's the first reason. The second one is that some producers may be too small to take advantage of capital equipment. Some producers produce few goods. They don't operate on a large scale. So why do they need capital equipment? Do you get the point?
Yes.
So they can't invest in capital goods because their production is on a smaller scale. Is it clear?
Yes.
Let me see the third one. Yeah, so that's the point they're making there. Examples are the barbers, the hairdressers, a shoemaker. A shoemaker is from a shoe company.
Yes.
A shoe company could invest in capital goods. A shoemaker wouldn't want to buy the same machine that shoe companies like, what are the names of shoes we have? Different shoemakers.
Yeah.
Do you understand the point I'm making here?
Yes.
They cannot invest like them. They are shoemakers. They just want to make handmade shoes. You want them to invest like Nike. You want them to invest like this company, like Bata and the rest. Is it clear?
Yes.
The last paragraph, it says, relying more on labor than capital has a number of other advantages. Workers can be more flexible in terms of what they do. The size of the labor forces can be adjusted by small amounts. Labor can also provide feedback on how the last paragraph there. Do you see it?
The
last paragraph, like relying.
Yes.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Let me read it again, please. Relying more on labor. We're still talking about labor intensive.
Yes.
So now we're talking about the advantages. We've talked about the advantages, which the first one is what? Firms are too small because based on their small production method, they use labor.
Yeah.
Firms, the supply of labor is high in that economy. So labor is relatively cheap.
Wages is less.
Wages are less. So firms will use labor intensive. Now the advantages. One, they said workers are more flexible in terms of what they do. Machines are fixed. They are special. They make them special for certain production.
Yes.
So if this machine is made for production of A or to produce product A, it might not be able to produce product B. But workers are flexible. They can switch their functions. They can switch their job. Machines are not, especially in the short run. In the short run, you can switch workers. Do you get what I'm saying there?
Yes, yes.
Labor can switch from one occupation to another in the short run, but it's difficult for machines to switch in the short run. Maybe in the long run, yes, but in the short run, it's difficult. But firms have to work. Firms have to react with changes in the market. And changes in the market happens now. It happens as soon as now.
Yes, yes.
So it needs a reaction of now. Machines won't be able to do that. Workers will be able to switch. There is occupation mobility with workers. Workers can switch job from one to another. Machines cannot in the short run. That's an advantage of labor intensive there. Clear?
Yes.
The second one, labor will give feedback. Do you understand?
Yes, yes.
Labor will tell you, oh, sir, this is what we need to do. This is how we can do it. So that I can be motivated, they can be motivated. Machines won't say nothing. So you can get feedback from workers on how to increase productivity.
Yes.
That's the point they're making there. Clear?
Yes.
And the last point there is, they said the size of labor force can be adjusted by small amounts. You can adjust the labor force. Oh, we need 10 workers. Okay, let's adjust it to 7. Oh, we need 7 workers and we have 10. So we can take 2 or 3 away. When you're buying that equipment, you buy it. You can't adjust the equipment because you want to reduce your output. If your output is reducing, the equipment stays. But you can reduce the number of workers you have.
Yes.
Do we get it, please?
Yes.
That's the point they made there. Clear?
Mm.
We'll move on. Firms may switch from capital-intensive production to labor-intensive production if the price of capital increases and labor can carry out the same functions with the same level of productivity as the machines they replace. So, firms can also switch from capital-intensive to labor-intensive if the price of equipment and machine continue to rise. In as much as labor is the substitute.
Yes.
That's the point there. Is it clear?
Yes.
That's all about that. As well as having the capacity to produce more products at a lower average cost. Capital goods produce, okay. Now, let's go to, now in practice, however, firms tend to switch from labor-intensive production to capital-intensive. So why do firms switch from labor-intensive to capital-intensive? First, this is because technology tends to make capital goods more affordable and more productive. The first reason why firms would choose or would switch from labor-intensive to capital-intensive is because technology is advancing. And with advancement in technology, productivity will increase, even at a low cost.
Yes.
Do you get the point?
Yes.
2, education. Training. The education is becoming more capital intensive with developments such as online university degrees and the rest. So with education now, education is being, fine-tuned in line with technology. So virtually everybody is on technologies is getting used to doing things with the internet.
Yes.
So that means we need more of equipment. We need the computer, we need the smartphones, we need all these things to work with. So firms understand this. So they are switching from being strictly labor to the mixture of both. Is it clear?
Yes.
As well as often having the capacity to produce more product at a lower average cost, technical economies of scale. So another reasons why firms would switch from labor to capital is because of economies of scale. They want to enjoy technical economies of scale, which allows them to use equipment that would increase their output and reduce their cost of production.
Yes.
Equipment machines would not waste resources. Firms will. Workers will not waste resources. Machines will not waste resources. Workers might. Workers might find shortcuts. Machines would not. Do you get the point there?
Yes.
They do not engage in industrial actions. Machines will not go on strike. workers might go on strike, disrupting production. Yes or no?
Yes.
They also do not have time off. Ill are not affected by tiredness, although they do need to be maintained and can break down. So machines do not get tired, but you have to maintain them. They need maintenance. You need to service them. They won't get tired. They won't complain about the job. So these are reasons why firms might choose capital intensive instead of labor intensive. Machines are reliable. That was the point there. Is it clear?
Yes.
We move on. Production and productivity. Are you there?
Yes.
There are clear links between production and productivity, but they are not the same thing. If output per worker hour increases and the number of working hours stays the same, production will increase. It is possible, however, that productivity could rise and production could fall. This could occur if unemployment increases. Indeed, a rise in unemployment may increase productivity, as it is the most skilled workers who are likely to keep their jobs. Production and productivity are not the same. There's difference between production and productivity. They say if output per worker hour increases, the number of working hours stays the same, production will increase. If what you produce increases, but the hours you produce stays the same, your production will increase. Most of the time, productivity fall. Most of the time, productivity will increase even when production is falling. No, productivity will increase without production falling or increasing. Do you get it or not? No. This is the point. There's production and productivity. Production is the creation of goods and services. Productivity is the output divided by the number of workers that produce it. So they are not the same. So productivity might increase. Production might increase without productivity increasing. Do you get what I'm saying here?
Yes, sir.
Yet they said, if output per worker hour increases and number of working hours stays the same, production will increase. If output per worker increases, the numbers of hours they work still remains the same, production will increase. What they produce is increasing, but the hours they use to produce it stays the same. They work from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the night. They produce 1,000. But because they have increased their productivity, they increase what they produce. Without changing the number of hours they work, their production will increase. So productivity can increase without altering production. Because output is based on the hours worked. Did you get it? So here they said, it is possible, however, that productivity could rise and production could fall. Productivity can rise at the same time production falling. A situation like this could be based on unemployment. When there's unemployment, productivity will rise because those that are able to those that will be in job are those that can work hard. If you are able to maintain your job, if you are able to stay at your job, it means you are doing well. It means you are increasing your productivity. But production will not increase because a lot of people are unemployed. So unemployment will increase productivity but reduce production. Skilled workers will maintain their job, will keep their jobs, but doesn't guarantee that their production will increase because resources are unemployed. That is the point they're making there. So they said this could occur if unemployment increases. Indeed, the rise in unemployment will increase productivity as it is the most skilled workers who are likely to keep their jobs. So, as economies develop, both production and productivity tend to increase due to advances in technology and improvements in education. This development can result in productivity rising so much that total output increases while the number of working hours decline. So with productivity increasing, the number of hours worked could reduce. Productivity can increase and the numbers of hours we work reduces because with education, we have more training, we have more skills. So we develop ways of doing things in a better way, in a better version. This is what education will do. This is what technology will do. So technological advancement, education would make things to become better and faster because skills are added. So productivity would increase with production, and at the same time spent for production would fall, would start declining. So you wouldn't need to spend 10 hours at work. Maybe with advancement in technology, with your level of education, with improvement in your skills, you could do what you are supposed to. You could do it for 5 hours instead of spending 10 hours to get it done. Do you understand the point there?
Yes,
so that is the point they are making. So we'll go to the question. Multiple choice, please. They said the table shows the distribution of labor force of a country between 2 years: agriculture, mining, and manufacturing, retailing, education. How did the distribution of employment changes between year one and year two? In year one, they have 10 agriculture.
Yes,
in year two, it decreases to 8. Mining from 4 increases to 5. Manufacturing stays the same. Retailing reduces. Increases from 10 to 12. Education stays.
So it's B. Primary industry rose.
So
it rose, primary industry.
The employment, what happens with employment in the primary sector? What happens with the employment in the secondary sector? What happens with the employment in the tertiary sector? That is the point. So employment in the primary sector, which is agriculture and mining.
Yes.
Does it increase or decrease?
It decreases in agriculture and increases at
put them together as sectors. Okay, if you are putting in agriculture, it fell.
Yes, and if you put mining, it increases
by 1. So employment in the agriculture sector still stays the same. In the primary sector, stays the same. 14 and 14.
Yes.
Stays the same, right?
Yes.
In the manufacturing sector, stays the same. In the service sector,
retailing and education,
from 15 to 17, it increases. Yes. In the service sector, it increases. Yes. Do you understand? So employment in the primary sector between year 1 and year 2 stays the same. Employment in the secondary sector between year 1 and year 2 stays the same. But employment in the tertiary sector increased. Is it clear?
So which one is it?
How the distribution? Okay, we check primary sector.
So it's unchanged. It must be C.
Primary sector is unchanged.
So it must be C.
Primary industry is unchanged, yes. Yeah. Secondary. We have only manufacturing in secondary.
I think it's A. I think it's C. B. I think B.
The tertiary industry, we have education and retailing.
Yes. Yes.
It rised. It rised. It rised.
So it's A.
But I'm checking why mining, manufacturing, except if you are taking mining to be, mining is primary sector.
Yes, it is.
It's primary sector. So agriculture and mining is in the primary sector. There's 14. 8 plus 5 is also 14, right? No, 8 plus 5 is 13.
13.
8 plus 5 is 13. I was thinking it's 14.
No, it's so it's A.
So let's look at it again. The primary sector from 14 to 13, it fell. The secondary sector remains unchanged. Yes. Manufacturing. The tertiary sector increased. It is A. Please let's always check very well. Okay. Question 2. A doctor and an operating theater are complementary factors of production. Substitute.
What?
A doctor and an operating theater.
Yes.
They are complement factors. A doctor and the operating theater, where they operate patients.
Yes.
Without the doctor, the theater is just empty. It's redundant. Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
And without a theater, a doctor is also redundant.
Complementary factors.
Complementary. So it's A. Question 2 is A. Question 3. Which of the following would cause an increase in demand for capital goods?
A decrease in
corporation tax, yes. Because a fall in disposable income will reduce consumption, which means firms will not be making revenue. A rise in interest rate will make borrowing to become expensive. Investment would fall. A rise in pessimism, that means firms will not have confidence in the future, so they won't invest. So the answer is A.
Yes.
Question 4. 25 workers produce total output of 300. What is the average product per worker? That's 300 divided by 25. 12.
12, yeah.
So the answer is A. So that's all about that.